This episode of the Beauty Industry podcast was brought to you by the Uniform Stylist, eco-friendly, practical, stylish therapy uniforms. Hello and welcome to the Beauty Industry podcast, your online support community for the professional beauty industry. I am your host, founding director of Beauty Industry, Tamara Shaw. Here we are closing the competitive gap and speaking your language. This is a platform created and dedicated to the professional beauty industry, valuing community over competition. We serve to help connect you with inspiration from industry experts, expand your knowledge through educational pieces, and bring you the latest in product and technology innovation. This is Beauty Industry. My guest today is an industry icon who has created a sacred space for well-being, bathing and relaxation. In fact, I would safely bet that you have been to this special place on the Mornington Peninsula, the Peninsula Hot Springs. Founded by brothers Charles and Richard Davidson in 1997, the inspiration for the space actually began when Charles was living in Japan in 1992, which you'll hear more about from Charles himself. In 2005, the Spa Dreaming Centre opened to offer guests bathing, spa treatments and dining experiences. A now iconic Australian landmark, the Peninsula Hot Springs has been recognised for excellence with its first Victorian Tourism Award in 2010 and has since been inducted into the Victorian Tourism Awards Hall of Fame in Health and Wellbeing, Tourist Attraction and Ecotourism categories. On a global scale, the Peninsula Hot Springs has been announced as winner at the World Luxury Spa Awards in 2014, 2016 and 2017. Today, the Peninsula Hot Springs is a highly regarded employer of over 290 staff, which hosts a spa team of 40 therapists and is visited by over 450,000 people annually. Sharing insights into the therapy of water, from the Peninsula Hot Springs, today we welcome Charles Davidson.
Thanks, Tamara.
My pleasure. Now, I read it was your travel through Japan which made you fascinated with bathing and the thermal world. What was it about that landscape that drew you to having that experience?
Well, it was coming from studying in Tokyo and being sort of intensively caught up in Japanese study, where I was learning the language at that point, and being taken away to the countryside. It was in the middle of winter. There was snow up in the trees. And there I was in my birthday outfit looking up at these the snow-covered trees and had an epiphany. And I just felt this sense of oneness with the world. I felt this total blissful relaxation. And all I could think of is, why don't we have that at home in Australia? It really took me back to the life in Australia when I was young and lying on beaches and being this sort of this blissful relaxation. In Japan, you'd call it not in Japanese, you call it non-biri, that it's really blissful relaxation. And here I was in the snow in the middle of winter, having this same sensation. And so that sort of led me down the path.
Fantastic. And explain for me, how does one go from having an idea to conception of the hot springs? Because I imagine it wasn't as simple as a click of a finger.
Not at all. But it does start with the passion. It does start with an idea and a creativity. So you have to have something that stirs your passion. You have to have something that really, it owns you. It has to be that good. And this journey to get the hot spring started, and the 14 years since the hot spring has started, is a big one. And basically, we bought land in 1997, and then spent the next 8 years going through the process of doing all the things you need to get a business started. Now, depending on the size of the business, it doesn't have to take so long, and the nature of the business. So in a lot of the beauty industry, it can be a very quick process. But if you have a very big dream, and in our case, it was one that involved having to drill a bore 600 metres deep, find land and buy land, and get planning approvals, and get banking, and all of the things involved, and actually do a whole lot of background research. So even before we got our final planning approval, I would have visited 15 countries on hot springs research to understand what it was about this sensation that I enjoyed, that other people, how were other cultures, other people, how was my customers, my future potential customers, engaging with this experience that I was so enamored with. So doing the background research, getting a business plan, getting your finance, and ticking all of these boxes. And there are very clear guidelines on how to do this. But really getting back to the basics, it's have a real dream and have the passion. And once you're following your passion and the dream starts to own you, then that's the place of where the magic happens.
Fabulous. And so you're lying there in Japan, birthday suit, and you're bathing. What was the first thing you did when you had this idea and thought, I need to bring it back to Australia?
Well, that was back in 2002. So it was well before I'd found out there was hot water in Australia in 1990. Oh, what am I talking about? That was in 1992. Sorry, it was back in 1992 when I had that experience, and I didn't actually find there was hot water on Australia until 1997. So it was 5 years later. But once I hopped out of that pool and I had that epiphany, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Not the whole thing, but I knew the concept. I went off and spoke to some hydrogeologists in Japan, and I asked them, what do you think the chances are of there being any hot water in Australia, hot springs in Australia? And the answer that I got was that Australia is a very old country. It's very flat. It doesn't have earthquakes. And they said, no, Australia won't have hot springs. And they had the idea that hot water was associated with mountains and earthquakes and great geological activity. Now, the reality is over time, as I found out, that there's actually hot water in every state of Australia. There's hot water in nearly every country on Earth. This is one of the most diverse natural phenomenons of which this natural, bathing, natural spa, health, wellbeing industry can connect with. It's located in nearly every country on Earth, and as I said, in every state of Australia. And right now, and probably later in our conversation, we'll talk a little bit about the evolution of the Australian hot spring industry and some of these amazing facilities that are going to start springing up right across the country.
And what were people's first reactions when you told them in 1997 that you wanted to open hot springs in Australia?
I ran round excitedly. In fact, I'd knock on every door I could think of. Tourism Victoria back at that time, all the local shires and councils and everybody, and ran round and they looked at me and they saw this sort of spark in my eye and the excitement and, that thrill that you have of being so caught up in your own in the concept, in the dream, that they thought that behind the scenes, I know they thought I was mad, and they thought, but you're going to get people in hot water? You're going to what? They couldn't imagine what I was actually trying to do. But I think that in the enthusiasm is sort of infectious, and people see it, and the reality is that you don't want to let the people who say you can't do it get in the way of the people who are doing it. So you just got to get on with your dream and don't let small thinking people get in your way. So, and I didn't. I mean, and most of the time people were just, they love the passion. They go for it. And, one of the lovely things that happened throughout the journey was, because it took us 8 years from when we bought the land till when we opened the door. So look, it was a very long period of time, and it was a very difficult period of time, but we kept at it, and we had this local community of Rotary clubs and Probus clubs and all of these sort of pretty much retired citizens clubs, and they kept on inviting me to come and talk to them, and all over the place. I would have done 40 of them to talk to them about this dream. And being able to have the chance to talk about your dream and do it in a public forum like that, it was very good for me because it taught me not to be, embarrassed about public speaking, and which is really good, and it takes training to do that. It takes a while to be able to stand up in front of a crowd and not feel, not let the moment get in the way of what you want to actually say. It also helped me distill and keep believing in my story, because you tell it to enough people and it becomes real. So it kept my faith in what I believed in happening, and that was sort of through this sort of collective community.
Brilliant. And you mentioned there you purchased the land in 1997, but it wasn't until June 2005 which you opened the first stage of the build, which we now know as the Spa Dreaming Centre, which was around 8 years later. You mentioned there that you were doing a lot of research and you wanted to have business plans, and you needed to know who your competitors were, and really deep diving the landscape. And I guess nowadays for business owners, it's easier to download a business plan template off Google, or, figure out how to open a business. You could do a short course in 6 weeks and figure out how to do that. What did startup life look like for you during those 8 years?
It was a very, very different era. We certainly didn't have podcasts. It certainly wasn't a thing called there wasn't a thing called an iPhone. There wasn't a thing called Google. So back in 1997, 1998, when we first found out there was hot water on the peninsula, I decided at that stage that I needed to understand what it was, who my customers were and how other cultures and people around the world were using this gift of natural hot springs, so we could bring that back into the design and the intention of our place. And the core intention of our place, and it's been there from the very beginning, and it is very important to be able to distill why you're doing something and what the purpose is. And if the purpose is just money, it should not be enough. Because money, once you've got the money, then it's finished. Your purpose is done. I've got money. But if you've got something which has a greater purpose than just the money, and of course money is important. You have to have a good business plan. You have to be able to look after your money and manage it, because that enables you to follow your dream. But you need to have a clarity of purpose. And in our case, our purpose was about helping people to connect with nature, to have the experience that I had in that bath in Japan, to connect with themselves and each other, and with the wellness of their being. So, and the each other was really about, in my case, we said, look, we're in Victoria, we're a multicultural country. We want to have something that's going to be suitable for all of community to come together as a community. And that was going to happen in this bathing and spa environment if we could create the environment in which the magic can happen. And really, we see ourselves as the creators of space where masters, which are, whether they're massage therapists, beauticians, whether they're yoga instructors, whether they're nutritionalists, dietitians, whoever it is who've got a motivational speakers, whoever it is that's got something incredible to share and to give to enhance and uplift people's lives, we want to be able to have a space where that can happen. And the beauty of natural springs and water is it's a real healing space. It's a natural space where people can be at one with nature and one with each other. So I literally said I wanted to go to different countries. So I organised a trip and went to Russia, and was in Moscow, and through a arrangement with, working out through friends and any person I could find to help me find the way around, I got an introduction to somebody from the Geological Survey of Russia, and also then somebody who was the head of the Russian Spa Federation, a guy called Nikolai Strozensko, who just happened to also be the president of FemTech, which is an international organisation of thermalism or hot springs, and is also the head of the Russian Spa Federation, Vice Minister of Tourism of Russia, and he was a private physician, the private doctor, he was a medical doctor as well, for Gorbachev. So Mikhail Gorbachev,
Wow.
president of Russia. So, one morning I found myself in the Kremlin. I was 31 years old, at 11 o'clock, I was having vodka with this incredible man who was a private doctor, the man who introduced perestroika and brought down the, got America and Russia talking again. It was very incredible and very profound. And my next trip after that, which was on the same trip, I actually went off to the Czech Republic, did a spa course with what was iSpa, the American Spa Association, had a training study course they were doing in the town of Karlovy Vary, which is an old European spa town. And I spent a week there with a whole lot of mainly Americans and Canadians, basically. And I was the odd man out, an Australian who came from Japan, I was living in Japan at that time. And we studied all about the use of hot springs, but with nutrition and health and doctors, and we had lectures from different people, and that was a really good early introduction. This is in 1998 of the European style of bathing. And the last part of that trip, I went to Yemen and flew into Sana'a, the capital of Yemen. Now, the only way I could find back at that stage, even find to be able to get into Yemen, was because there was no such thing as Google. And so I was in Tokyo trying to find my way to Yemen because I wanted to, basically, the theory was I wanted to get a diversity of experiences at hot springs from around the world. And here I was in Japan, I went to Russia, I went to Europe, and I thought, well, we also need to know what's happening in the Middle East. And particularly, even back then, there were still all of these problems and concerns, and 9/11 hadn't happened. There were a whole lot of things that hadn't happened, but there was things happening. There was obviously a lot of disconnect between races, between religions, between ideologies. There was so much disconnect happening in the world that I felt if we were going to build a place where people could be in harmony with nature and each other, we needed to understand what was happening in that place. So basically, I looked up, I picked up The Economist magazine, and I looked for the poorest country on earth. I had a theory that hot springs wasn't actually about money at all, that it was actually about building community. And wherever there was hot springs, there would be a community around it and a culture around it. And it wasn't built up on money. It was actually built up on the healing properties of the water, the natural resource itself. I picked up The Economist. I saw that there was a country called Yemen that had a GDP per capita of $320 a year, wow, which is less than $1 a day. This whole average, this whole country was surviving on, and then just by total chance, Yemen, such a poor country, had one consul in all of the southern hemisphere, and it just happened to be in Tokyo, where I was. So I actually went to the consul, and I spoke to them, and got what information I could, and they faxed me information because we had the old fax back then, and then I actually went in and spoke to them, and it turned out that there were a few tourism companies, and I contacted one which was owned by the Minister of Tourism. And I thought, well, I'll go there. And I spent a few days traveling around Yemen with a private driver, visiting natural hot springs. And I went to one spa in the capital of Sana'a that was 2,200 years old and still operating. And their current owners at that stage said, we've only had this hot spring for just a little while. We've only had it for the last 100 years, our family. And when you looked at it in the history of 2,200 years, 100 years is only a little while. But they'd been custodians of this gift, which is the bathing experience. And they really looked at it as being a custodian and a recent owner, and that they could keep these traditions that has gone on and on. but now, and I haven't stopped. I've been to 46 countries so far, and on hot spring research missions. So you don't stop learning, and I don't think I'll ever stop learning. And you always need to be, looking deep into what you're doing. And if you're passionate about it, then it's just an enjoyment. I mean, it's a real path of enjoyment. But we do bring back experiences that help that connection continue. So, yeah, I mean, even next week, I'm not next week, in June, July, I'm heading off to go through the Baltic states. So I'll go from a driving trip from a hot spring driving trip with my son, in fact, but going from Holland right through Germany, Poland, and then right through the Baltic states until I get up to into Russia, and there. So that the adventure continues, and I'll get over 50 hot springs by the end of that. 50 countries.
What an incredible experience. You mentioned there that where there is hot springs, there is community. What is it about the water that makes us feel so connected and grounded and wanting to create that community aspect?
Well, water itself is a living consciousness. There's a lot of studies that have been had that shows that water actually is a living thing as well, and it has its own consciousness. And so it is something that connects us. But more importantly, water is us. And when I say that, I mean that our body weight is approximately 70% water. So 70% of who we are is made up of water, our weight. So you jump on the scale and about 70% of that is water. But if you look at the molecules in our body, water, H2O, it's only 3 little molecules compared to most of the other parts that make us up, the molecules that make us up. Water is so small that it actually represents about 99% of all of the molecules that we are made of. So basically, to a very large extent, we are water. So when we line water, and you line water of a nice warm temperature similar to your body, you are just actually floating in a really something that is you. So, and it's in that space, which is sort of like being back in the womb. It's very embracing. It's very protecting. It's very, it gives you that great sense of harmony. And it is that sense that I felt, lying in that pool in the town of Kusatsu in 1992, was something that everybody feels. The natural state should be total blissful relaxation. And it's only if people have got some psychological problem, they might have had a fear of drowning or a fear of some phobia or something that's happened in their life that has led them not to feel comfortable in a pool. But your natural state, being in the womb, being in water, is where you are most relaxed.
That's so special. And I want to get back to the Peninsula Hot Springs. We mentioned there 2005 Spa Dreaming Centre opened, 2009 we have the bathhouse, and 2018 you've opened the amphitheatre. And for those who don't know, you've got another 7 pools, 2 saunas, ice cave, deep freeze, wellness centre, cafe, open air stages. So much going on. Was it your vision to have that many pools and that many different aspects of the land when you were thinking about what it would look like?
Yeah, look, to a large extent, the master plan hasn't changed. So, and we have it displayed on our, on the walkway and the way into the property. You'll see the master plan is there, and the amphitheatre was always there. We've got a tea house that's not in there yet. We've got a food bowl which has started construction, but it's not open to the public yet. An amazing food bowl. But what's happened is we've had the areas there and the basic functionality of wanting to bring music, art and culture in the amphitheatre, and wanting to bring food and nutrition and health through nutrition, which is more of the holistic health. We wanted to always bring that in. But what we've done, and through our learning and through thinking and through, just conversations and being deep in the space, is tried to utilise the spaces in multiple ways. So instead of just having an amphitheatre, and a stage where music would be held sometimes, what we've done is we've put pools, the 7 pools around the amphitheatre, so we can have about 120 people, or in fact a little bit more, but around that can sit in very comfortably in hot pools. And then there's still terraces and seating and grass areas, so you can fit about another 500-600 people. Nearly about 700 people can fit in that area. But because we've incorporated the bathing in there as well, it means that even if we're not playing music or you're not actually in performance, you've got the space being used all the time. So, and we're finding it's very popular, and people love looking out and seeing an anticipation of what could be at the stage. And there's a lake in front of it, and we always have, there are ducks and herons and different birds always flying past and wandering around. Lots of different bird life. So, just looking at nature out from a pool in this area, which has really turned into a sort of nature's wonderland, a nature's amphitheatre. So when there's not actually somebody on the stage, there's something on the stage, and most of the time it's as I was saying, ducks or herons or other bird life has really come into the space.
After the break, Charles shares with us the hardships of startup, what it means to have a supportive team around him, and how much he actually uses the baths himself. But first, a word from our sponsor. The team at The Uniform Stylist have been one of our industry partners for quite some time now, for the very reason their eco-friendly, luxurious and durable uniforms are both stylish and practical. I personally recommend their products because they're so incredibly comfortable to wear all day long, no matter what treatment you're performing. Because we're coming up to the end of financial year, Lisa and the team would love to reward the beauty industry community for their support with some special exclusive offers. For anyone interested in the beautiful Embassy collection, pop in the code BI20 at the checkout for 20% off any order over $200. Or if you would like to stock up for your entire team, use the code BI30 for 30% off any order over $1,000. This offer is available online only, however you can consult with Lisa anytime for any queries you may have. Visit www.theuniformstylist.com to place your order. And now, back to the episode. I guess we often hear on podcasts and videos and things like that, the inspirational stories of successful business owners and how they've made it. And sometimes we leave out the hard times and we gloss over them and just look at the success story that they're in now. Were there ever times where you thought, this is just too hard, it's not going to work?
Oh, definitely. I 8 years it took us. So we bought the land, and then we started down the process, and we had drillers who turned up and said it'll take them 3 months to drill, and that was all looking good. And we had investors who had lined up, and we'd done all of this. It was just all looking great, and had our architect with drawings and all these fantastic things. And then the driller just didn't turn up for work. He said, I'll be there on Monday, but he forgot to say Monday of which month or even which year. And it took him 18 months to do a job that should have taken 3 months. And we lost our investors, and then there was a very, very tough time at that stage where you just couldn't see the future. You couldn't see tomorrow. You didn't know what was going to happen, and yet you lived today. And so it did instill in you a total belief and a sort of an obsession just about with your dream, because to hold on to it means that it means more to you. Now, I did think of going back to my old, corporate life, because I'd studied at university, and then I'd gone off and had really good jobs. I worked in Collins Street, working for big trading companies, and worked off the Australian Embassy in Tokyo, and had, and I made a really good CV. And I could have gone off and got a job back in international trade easily, but it just wasn't where my heart was. And I just couldn't picture myself going back to the desk. Even though I really enjoyed that job, I never sort of left something I didn't enjoy. I've only ever done what I enjoy, and done it with passion. So even when I worked in the corporate world, I still worked very hard, did long hours, and did things because, my belief in myself is that I'm a worker. But a passionate worker who the dream took over me. But during those years, I started off calling myself a Dickney, a double kids, no income. And then I became a Trickney and a Quickney. So I had 4 kids and no income, quadruple kids and no income. And I was running a little trial spa called Mizu Spa, where, I was hand building with no money, just hand building this little spa. And I used to go to the quarry in my postie van and fill it up with rocks and bring it back and hand build pools and carved out an old water tank and turned that into I put a sort of tarpaulin roof over it, which was it's nice fabric, but it was a tarpaulin roof, and painted it and turned it into a double treatment room. And that was it was amazing. The roof was actually a flexible roof. And when the wind blew, and I tied it off to a tree above it, and I used to call that massage room Breathe, B-R-E-A-T-H.
There you go.
And B-R-E-A-T-H-E, so it's a verb. It's actually the action of breathing. And when the wind blew, the tree would move, and the whole roof would lift and go up and down, and you'd feel like you were in the lung. And had a double massage room in there, and that was beautiful. It was beautiful. I haven't actually redone that one. I really should one day. That was it was a beautiful, really a beautiful space that connected people to the wind and to outside, and yet you were, wrapped up in the earth. It was actually half underground. So
very special.
Anyway.
Your advice, perhaps, to a business owner who is listening to this and resonating with you, in the fact that maybe they're in startup or they're trying to create something and they're getting roadblock after roadblock, what would you say to them?
Well, stick at it. We say to ourselves then, perseverance pays and determination delivers. And, that was sort of a mantra. So you've got to create your own mantra that keeps your head, sane, because it's really tough. There's some really tough moments in the startup of any business. I think it's also finding time for your health. I used to be out digging holes and, actually be able to build that facility, called Mizu Spa, and hand build the thing. It gave me a lot of think time. And you've got to find your think time somewhere. And now I do it more on bike riding. But I'm doing a lot of hands-on things as well. My pet project right at the moment is I'm hand carving a limestone bath for one of the new accommodations we're putting in at the Hot Springs, and it's out of a huge block of limestone. It'll be big enough for about 4 people.
Wow.
And I'm hand carving this bath. And that will give me, even now, time to think and time to reflect, and it's a bit of exercise. So you can go to the gym if that's where you need to do it. Go bike riding, and I do that a bit. But really, it's about finding a headspace and a creative time where you can think, and and some people do meditation. Some people, you have your own way to find time to think and to be and reflect. I think that's a really important component of it. Finding mentors, speaking to friends, speaking to people. It's good to verbalize what you want to do, not hide it and say it's a secret. It's a secret. I think very rarely is there are there actually secrets you need to keep. I can't think of a time when I've got anything, as long as you're not offending anybody in what you're thinking. I think being able to verbalize your thoughts and share it with people and have whether it's a mentor or just good friends or, anybody in the industry, people you respect and look up to and so forth, trying to get down to have a cup of coffee with them. And, the more that you can do that, the more you refine the idea and be open to what people say. I mean, you're the one who knows it because it's your dream, but there's never a place called perfection. There's just a journey towards creating a great experience and creating a great customer experience. So you want to, keep an open mind to be able to learn and to evolve and to expand. Expand on your offering. If you stagnate, if you stop, or if you're closed-minded, it's probably the worst thing you can do.
That's great advice. I want to touch base on, you've got 290 staff, 40 of which are therapists. How important is the day spa aspect of having the Peninsula Hot Springs?
And actually the numbers, it's not 290, it's 316 now. And
oh, wow.
We've got 55 therapists, I'm pretty sure it is now. I think we've been sitting around 55 to 60 for quite some time. So, but anyway, that's only a small technicality. The point is there's a lot of them. And the question was, how do we find staff? Was it, or no?
How important is the staff and the day spa aspect of the Peninsula Hot Springs? Because I know that there are bathing centres in which there aren't, the massage and the facial and the scrub section. So how did kind of that side of the business come about?
Look, it sort of came about, but it came about because we were doing our, market assessment. And we tried to find what would be the closest business to ours and in Victoria. And we looked at Hepburn Springs. Now, Hepburn Springs is a natural mineral spring. They've got, beautiful mineral springs in a beautiful location up in Dalesford. But there's this cold water that comes up and they have to heat it. So, but it's still beautiful, But we looked at their business and got to know them and that was sort of what they had. They had, so we sort of thought that's a starting point. Let's have a look at that. And they seem to be being successful. It seems to be what people associate with this experience. And they were doing 100, 120 treatments a day. They had their bathing, this and that. And so, look, we put it in partly because of that, but it was also a woven in element to the experience in in some places in Japan. Most of them in Japan don't actually offer massage, but some of them did. Certainly in Europe, it was a central part of the bathing experience, and the whole day spa industry, which was just emerging back then, was really predicated on massage. Was one of the key, what you call, pillars or core aspects of the experience. I see the massage as being, and the day spa as primarily being the me side of the experience. And that is when you're going on the inside. You're looking at your inside, you're trying to look after yourself, you're trying to find time to slow down, and it helps with that whole experience of, looking after you, looking after me. And I see the bathing element and the main bathhouse and other things is really the we side of the experience. It's where spa becomes social, where it becomes something more than a self-indulgence or a self not even indulgence. Looking after me, you end up being in a social space. So you're there with a group of friends. You're there as a social experience, whereas you can go and have a massage, and a lot of people do it on a regular basis. You can't always afford to come to a place like ours because our overheads are such that we have to charge a pretty high price. Whereas if you go down to your local, your local mini day spa where the owner is the masseuse, their overheads are tiny, and then they can afford to charge, quite a lot less. But we have to pay for, people to run around, and we give everybody robes and towels, and we give, you've got the front reception, we've got a whole marketing team, you've got this and that. We haven't just got a sign up on the door saying massage $60.
It's a whole experience.
We have to create it as a whole experience, but the massage itself, and so we're not really targeting, that regular massage. We're targeting the massage as a complete experience. And so now, if you're having a massage at Peninsula Hot Springs, you have to, you have free access to the bathing. So it's just incorporated in the experience. And in fact, in the spa centre now, your access to bathing is in fact access to both areas. So you get the bathhouse and the spa dreaming centre. And we've really done that deliberately because we didn't want people coming to our place and really comparing it to, Australia, maybe even one of the inducted spas, for example, where you're going and, you have a nice environment, but you're going for a massage. You go there for a massage. You go there for a facial. You're going there for a technical beauty reason or just for the massage. Whereas we see ourselves as a complete experience. And, part of that can be, you go there by yourself or with a partner and have a massage and sit in this quiet spa, or you can go there with 10, 15 friends and, and have a whole day, and you can still do the massage as part of it, but then you go across and you're in the amphitheatre and you're in the hammams and you're scrubbing each other, and you go to the clay ridge and you'll grab some of the earth clays and you'll paint each other with different beautiful healing earth clays and have a giggle, and you can sleep in some of the relaxation lounges that we've tested now. We've got 7 new ones coming in the next couple of weeks, of these amazing dome lounges, which are just
incredible,
warm sleeping spaces, and everybody are enjoying it. In fact, it's very funny. Often we get groups of friends now who, might get 5 or 6 of them, 7 of them. They'll go into one of these sleeping lounges that we've got, and they're all asleep. It's just, they jump in the hot pools, play around, have a giggle, and then they're in there having a sleep. And then they wake up and they go off to the cafe, and they really make a complete wellness social experience. And it's really getting me, getting to the point where it's the whole picture, which is building and creating community where people are in harmony with each other and nature, and connecting with the wellness of their being. And, there's some beauty in communal sleeping space where everyone is just fast asleep. It's sort of like, wow, look at this. Now that is wellness.
And that's so special that you've been able to create that. I'm wondering, do you find yourselves using the hot springs on a personal level, or if maybe it feels different now because it's your place of business?
No, I love using it. I do. Yeah. So if we ever do another podcast, I'll do one like this, which will just be on the phone. But then the next one we'll have to do lying in a hot pool. And,
yes, that would be incredible.
So I do sort of weave in. The once you get to know people, you don't want total strangers jumping in a pool. It's a bit weird.
Yeah.
But once you've got to know people, I'm often having meetings in the pools, and you're chatting and you walk around. And in fact, we're introducing a whole lot of new outdoor offices, and doing walking meetings. And so we've got all these desks we're setting up in beautiful locations with views, which are just one-way desks. So they're not actually, you're not looking at each other. So it's not a picnic table. It's just a desk, and it looks out over the view. And so you can go on a walking meeting and, bring your little backpack with your laptop in it. You might be talking, and you go, oh, hang on, let's do that. And you just stop, and you can write your text or your email or do whatever you need to, or just stop and look at the view and have a chat. And we're trying to reimagine how it can be. and to get people moving. So that sort of physicality of, people spending so much time sitting at desks, that we can start to try and look after the health of our people. But in fact, it's going to be open for guests. All of those are being open and available to different guests who come, particularly the overnight guests, as accommodation comes on. So they're just examples of you just keep thinking, imagining, and creating, and that's that is the fun of a business. Owning a business and running a business is that you are the creator. You're the one who's in charge, and that's about creating a wonderful experience that's hopefully memorable and ideally transformational, in that people can learn something while they're there. So when they're having a massage or having a facial, you're telling them this is what it's doing for you, and this is good, and these are the properties in it, and it comes from here, and did you know this is an environmentally sustainable product, and blah blah blah. And it can, if you can do it in a nice, intentional way, which is actually about learning, it's not about selling. You can actually achieve the sale anyway. Sometimes when you're talking about product attributes, as long as you're actually believing in it, it can it can be very authentic, and that's the best sale ever, is when people are actually learning. So they're becoming better versions of themselves because they're learning something out of what you're teaching, no matter what part of our experience that we deliver. So, and particularly in the spa, as I was saying, the beautician, you've got people and they're there right in front of you.
That's so incredible. So for anyone listening, and we have a bookable service where we do a little bit of mentoring for our beauty industry community. When I come to Melbourne next, we are doing a pool meeting.
There you go. I've set myself up for that one.
Yeah, you'll see me walking around with my little laptop and a microphone. Well, where can we go now?
Well, hopefully we'll be able to, during it, we can do a walking meeting and talk and make sure it's not a windy day. So, and then, and hopefully in podcasts we can add some photos, and so you could say, well, here's so instead of having to, you can not just imagine what it looks like, you can actually see it. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if we can do that, but anyway, it's worth a try. I'm sure there's ways to do it. I'm sure we will. Yeah.
And Charles, I just want to finish up with one last question today for you. You mentioned there accommodation, walking meetings, desk in the bush. What does the future look like for Peninsula Hot Springs?
There is so many fun things. Probably the things that I'm most enjoying doing right now and anticipating for the future are, there's a number, but one is the food bowl. We've got 7 terraces, of which 3 have been made, and it's behind the scenes now, but soon it will be open up to the public. So there are 7 terraces, which are, the top one is about 100 metres or a bit longer in circumference. So it's a semicircle, like an ancient Roman amphitheatre in a sense. But then it goes down, and there are 7 layers to it. At the back of each one of those, there's a produce garden. So we're growing vegetables, and we've got a small vineyard, and we've got some low spalliard, which means sort of cut and trained, fruit trees. We've got all this different produce that's going to be growing there, including some medicinal and herbal products. There's a couple of greenhouses in that area. And in the front of each of these growing areas, we've got a 2-metre hard stand, which is like a path. It's made of the same things that all our paths are made of. So, and then it goes right down to the very bottom, 3 staircases at different points, in the middle and on each side, going all the way down to the bottom layer where there's a flat area, and then it goes to a lake. And there's this big lake, and on the lake there's a stage. And on that stage, we're going to be introducing, you'll be able to have music and events. We'll have a screen, which is a water screen. And basically that's going to be shooting water into the air. And on the water particles, you project. And so you'll have this water projection for the evenings. But during the day, you can have talks on food, nutrition and health. We can take people on walking tours. You can have if you love salads, we can take you on the salad tour, and you actually go and pick your salad with our and in the greenhouses, of which there are 2 of them. In one of them, we're going to have like a salad dressing bar, and you can sit in there on tables and chairs and look out over the food bowl and enjoy your salad, fresh salad that you've just picked. There's, so that's a really fun area. The other one, which is happening, and as I was saying, all the produce that's grown there is used on site. So we're using it, and we're very soon, anything where we've got excess, which happens in production sometimes. There are certain seasons when you get so many tomatoes, or you get so many radishes, or you get so much garlic, or whatever it is. Now, whenever we have excess, we're going to be setting up, and this is starting very shortly, a vegetable garden out the front near our reception, and basically, or a vegetable shop where you can buy the fresh vegetables that have just come from come for the excess that we haven't used in our kitchens. You'll be able to buy them. So that's fun. Yeah, well, it's really fun, and it's good for health. It sends so many nice messages about the importance of nutrition in our health and our well-being. So that's one whole story. The next one is probably the sleeping story that we're bringing in, which we've got, as I mentioned, we've got this one dome which we've been trialling for the last few months, and people are sleeping in it all the time. And we've got 7 new domes coming in, and some of those people privately, so you can have them like a cabana that you get at some of the big parks and things like that. But these are beautiful cabanas with lounges on them. You can plug your phone in if you want to. They'll have Wi-Fi. You'll have a tea station, and you can actually book some of those privately for the whole day. So you can have a group of 10 or 12 friends, and you can have that as your home base, and you can lie there and go out and hop in pools, and you can do a day hire. But we're also introducing a stay hire. So in the evening, you can either book it from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m, or you can book it from 6 p.m. till 9 a.m. And you basically stay there with a whole group of friends, and it's your home base. And pools will be then, this is from about October, will then be open 24 hours a day. Not all of them. We'll reduce the number of pools that are open, and then we'll rotate them because we do a cleaning regime and other things. But you'll be able to stay there overnight with a group of friends, and just crash out and jump in pools and then go back and sleep, and you have your home base. So that's a really fun, exciting one. The other one in the sleep area is our glamping area. We've got 10 glamping tents coming in, and this is sort of taking glamping to another level, I think, because we've got each of them are going to be on slabs, which are basically polished concrete, and we've got hydronic heating through them. So we're using the hot spring water, and then you put your tent over it, and we've got walk-in robes for a him and her section with a stand-up mirror in the middle, so you can dress up and be beautiful. You've got a single toilet and a bathroom on one of them at the beginning, but they will all eventually have that. But all the rest of them, there's 10 of those, and they'll have king-size bed and a lounge area, and then you've even got a little balcony, a covered balcony that looks out over it. Most of them will look out over the lakes, which are there are some new lakes going in, and even that balcony is heated. So you can have your feet down there in the warm, in winter, and you have bare feet, and you've got your feet on a warm floor, or you can throw a little rug over yourself, and the heat will come up from underneath you. Through. So nice. Yeah. So it's, that's really fun.
Lots happening.
Oh, it's so much fun. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your journey and your life experience, and good and learning experiences along the way of Peninsula Hot Springs. It's been so lovely to talk with you today and to be able to share your story and the journey with our audience.
Thank you, Tamara, and hopefully next time we'll be meeting at the Springs, and you might bring a group of 7 or 8, 9 friends with you to come and stay in one of the domes and enjoy the experience of the whole place.
It's not every day that you're able to speak with someone as innovative and creative as Charles Davidson. And how lucky are we to have had him feature on the podcast today? Once we got offline, Charles shared with me some further insights into the upcoming Peninsula Hot Springs accommodation, the water and light laser shows, and more that he has planned for the future. If you've not yet experienced the hot springs yourself, I highly recommend you take a drive down the peninsula of Melbourne, make a day of it bathing, and get back in touch with nature. And as always, if you have enjoyed this episode, we would be ever so grateful for you sharing it with your industry friends. Until next time, stay connected.